This episode of the Sloopcast is brought to you by the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company is an Ohio-based company where they usually say, our seasoning will take your barbecue from good to great. Did you know, Jared, that he has some special cookouts coming up here? He was in Cary, Ohio last Friday, and I believe there's another one this Friday. So come check out the Mad Canadian from, I believe, noon to 4, from what I saw.
Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but I'm sure it's noon to 4 this Friday in Cary, Ohio, right outside of Findlay. Unfortunately, you won't be able to use the promo code SloopCast10 if you're trying to order some.
That doesn't work at the side of the truck, unfortunately.
Nope. If you do want the 10% off, you do have to go to the website madcanadianbbq.com, sloopcast10 for 10% off. But if you're there, say hi to Mad Canadian, tell them the folks at Sloopcast sent you. And if you want to pick up some seasonings there, well, go right at it.
Does he sell seasonings out of the truck?
I think so.
You know what? We'll ask him, and that's a good idea if he isn't.
Yes.
We'll have to ask him about that one. We're not sure, but it's a good idea.
Yes, check out all the great seasonings Mad Canadian has at his website. And again, Sloopcast 10 at checkout for 10% off. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, they have your butt covered. Hey, YouTube, what beer are you drinking this week?
I think most of our listeners listen in the morning. I don't think they're drinking yet. Unless you were talking to me, in which case I have a Land Grant Stiff Arm.
Nice. I got some Oktoberfest, so fall is almost here.
Yeah. This is going to be another dog-heavy episode because Apollo is all over me. All right, let's rejoin the listeners. We've got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well. It's actually starting to feel more like fall right now. I think this is fake fall right now, but you know
Fake
what?
fall?
I'll take it.
I was actually able to, and Ohio State won't be actually on the TV for a while yet, but I was actually able to enjoy some college football this week. Not that this past week's slate of games, nothing special happened. No big upsets. No new information really. But it was nice to actually be able to enjoy it because I just couldn't enjoy it previously. It's just wasn't anything worth enjoying. Why isn't Ohio State? You know what I mean? Like it got into your head about like, oh man, why isn't Ohio State playing? Why isn't the Big Ten playing? And it just made it impossible to actually enjoy football.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to actually be able to enjoy it, I guess is what I'm trying to take the long way of saying. Which, typical Jared.
Yes. All right, Jared, let's get into it. We coming off of a short
layoff.
Layoff? No. We just released an episode recently. Only a few days later, we're going to have
short turnaround.
There you go. That's the word. A short turnaround here. So not a ton of new information, but we do have everyone covered here. So the Big Ten came out within the past couple of days of the Big Ten schedule. After looking at the list here, I would say Ohio State has a how to put this. I think they had a favorable cross division competition here. So Ohio State picks up, and I think I feel like they did this on purpose though, Jared. Week one, the Bros, the Scarlet Bros, going at it,
or Scarlet Alliance,
the Scarlet Alliance, going at it week one. Nebraska heading to Columbus, and from what I saw, that is the Fox headline. That is the Fox night game, which most likely, Jared.
Is it a night game? Has that been confirmed?
From what I saw, I'm going to double check.
Okay. Yeah. It feels not coincidental. I don't know. Maybe we're crossing into conspiracy theory stuff now. Just you had Ohio State and Nebraska who are really leading this charge back to football. The fan bases have made friends in recent weeks. And here's Ohio State, Nebraska week 1. Now, that's not enough for a conspiracy theory, but Nebraska, who are the ones that actually filed the lawsuit against the Big Ten, their other cross-divisional game is against Penn State, who is, I would say, arguably, maybe inarguably, the second best team in the conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The absolute worst possible cross-division setup anyone could have. And Nebraska, the team that filed the lawsuit, got it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's aliens. But it's aliens.
So yes, the first game is their headline game, which, not night game, the noon game.
Yes.
So it is the noon game, so Jared, that must mean
Gus Johnson
special. So they have here Big Ten on Fox, October 24th, noon game, Nebraska, Ohio State, as well as December 12th. And that's just weird seeing that. December 12th is the game. Also at noon.
If that one, even if it's not official, it's official. We can all just make that assumption. December 12th, Ohio State, Michigan, noon, Gus Johnson. It's happening. All
right, so I'm just going to go down the list here, just laying it out here for everybody who, for some reason, isn't aware of Ohio State's schedule. So,
sure.
Week 1, starting October 24th, home to Nebraska, following up to at State College to take on Penn State. And I don't anticipate there being a whiteout. Well, there may be a whiteout, but
I'm sure all of because as of right now, and with the Penn State game only being the second game, and I don't know, it's still like nearly 2 months away, 6 weeks or so, whatever the case might be. Right now, the only people going to be allowed in Big Ten stadiums are like family. I don't know how they're designating that. I don't know if they're just allotting X number of tickets per player or what the deal is, but it's
like I saw pictures of the Clemson game and there was a lot of people there.
There were a lot of people at the Oklahoma State game too, and all of them wearing their face masks, if they were wearing face masks, all of them wearing the face masks around their chins. So Oklahoma,
just like the grocery stores.
Is that what you're seeing?
Some.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Following the trip to State College on November 7th, home to Rutgers, then going over to College Park to take on the Terps, then home to the Hoosiers, then back-to-back away games of Illinois and Sparty, and then finishing up home against the team up north.
Yeah.
So starting strong, definitely starting really strong, really strong. And then finishing obviously strong as well.
I mean, that depends on how good you think Nebraska is. And I get that they're our friends and everything, but they are who they are. You know what I mean? It's not. And by the way, I'm not saying anything that Nebraska fans don't know. I think we've picked up a lot of, at least on Twitter. I have no idea how many, if any at all, are actually listening to the podcast. But I know on Twitter we've picked up a lot of Nebraska fans, and they're all just, hey, we're looking forward to losing to you by 24. That is what they keep saying to me on Twitter. Something along those lines anyway. And
more on that in a month here. when we cover them. When we cover the Know Your Enemy section. But it is still know your enemy for the next month here is still Kevin Warren.
Now and forever.
Yes. All right. So of the schedule that you see here, Jared,
Yeah.
which one really sticks out to you as maybe a trap game, or maybe a game that Ohio State really needs to look out for? Obviously, second week there, heading over to State College.
But that's not
that one.
That's not a trap game, though. You know exactly.
That one's not. Yeah.
Yeah. You can lose to Penn State. I mean, you know what I mean. Like, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If you show up to that game with a little too much, you know, a little too much crap in your eyes, you show up to that game with not enough sleep, you show up to that game ill prepared, you'll lose to Penn State. You can sort of have one foot out of the bed, maybe have a really bad quarter or half against Rutgers and still end up winning the football game. You can't do that against Penn State. There's not as much room for error against Penn State. So Penn State's not a trap game. Arguably, it's the only one of two games on the entire schedule that you couldn't designate a trap game, because Michigan's always Michigan. I don't anticipate this is going to be some sort of great year for Michigan. Not that they've had a great year in 2 decades, but this year's not going to be a year that I feel threatened by Michigan in any sort of way. Buddy, I need you to get down. Okay? Okay, thank you. Dog maintenance. Sorry, everyone. The door is open. If you want to go outside, just go. I left the door open. You can just go outside. No one's stopping you. Okay. I had to have a side convo with the dog. So the Penn State game and the Michigan game are the only games on the schedule that you should be really even worried about. So if we're talking trap games, Nebraska's the trap game. It's your first time playing football since January. You haven't even had a spring game. You're going to have freshmen in this game. It's going to be near a year without football for everyone on the field. That's a lot. You have Penn State coming in week 2. That's a lot. You know what I mean? And let's also just, it's a freaking decent, not bad, not great, decent team from the BigTen West, which is a thing Ohio State has had problems with in the past. Now it's in Columbus, so we're not completely going Purdue, Iowa here. The team is not black and some sort of yellow or gold, so it's not completely Iowa Purdue territory here. It's not at night, so okay, we're not full blown. Don't get Iowa'd here, but it's a decent team from the BigTen West. Yep. You have a really good game coming the next week, and you're just going to have rust. Now, the good news is Nebraska has rust too. So you're on even footing there. Everyone's going to be rusty. No one's going to be hitting on all cylinders. But if rust is, if we look at like field rust, just sort of not being on a football field, playing an actual game in a long time, you kind of look at that in the same way you look at bad weather, which is that it affects everyone, but it tends to affect the better team more because it sort of acts as like an evener of sorts. So if we're looking for a potential trap game, I think it's week 1. Well, you don't normally think of week 1 as a trap game, but there's going to be a lot of exceptions this year. I don't know, Kyle. Where do you see a trap game?
Maybe the Terps. I mean, you play Penn State, and then you don't think too much about Rutgers for obvious reasons, and then don't really look too far because, I mean, that middle of the schedule there, it's not good. It really isn't for Ohio State. Indiana, Illinois. I don't really expect too much from Michigan State again this year, but potentially that Maryland game there. You're going over to College Park there. Team may be better than it has been. I mean, we'll see how Tua's brother does. That's all up in the air. But Potentially that one there.
I have no idea what's happened. It's weird, and Kyle and I are going to try and remedy this a bit. By the way, we're starting up our Friday episodes again. We will be releasing an episode on Friday, so make sure to keep an eye out or an ear potentially out for that. And we're going to start to try to catch up a bit. Normally, at this point, and even when I say this point, I mean relative to the start of the season, we've started like conference previews and Big Ten previews, and we start doing all of these previews to amp up to the season. And we've been doing none of that because we've been so caught up in who's canceled, who's uncanceled, are the other conferences canceling? Why did we get caught up in so much other stuff that we never did any previews. And that's just is what that is. But we're going to try and remedy that. And I don't know what's happening in the Big Ten right now, really outside of Ohio State, or just the act of playing or not playing.
Yeah, I
Has
mean,
Tua's brother looked any dang good at Maryland? How much has Maryland actually been on the football field? We know Ohio State's been practicing. Ohio State's been practicing just in their helmets. I think they are now able to add pads, and I believe they have at this point.
Yeah.
But where's Maryland at? How's Tua's brother looked? Do we have any idea? Does the coaching staff have any idea how the little Tua looks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really, how many games are going to play too? Take for instance Baylor. Baylor's had both of their games already this year postponed.
Yeah.
How is that going to be played out? Now, we keep seeing and hearing things from different medias about, Ohio State's only going to play 8 games while the rest are going to be playing 10 plus games or whatever. It's like, nobody knows that. Nobody knows if Ohio State may be playing 6 games, 5 games, and other teams may be playing less games as well too.
Yeah.
We just don't know that. It's just all going to have to play on a week-by-week basis. And so when the playoff committee is going to have to choose the 4 best teams, this is just going to be such a difficult decision for them because they're just going to have to base it off of performance, off of what they see from week to week. So it makes Ohio State right from the get-go. When you get on the field, you better make an impact right away because you never know what that next week is going to be. Especially like you're looking at you play Nebraska. Let's say you play Nebraska, you play Penn State. All of a sudden, we're really deep into fall season right now. Maybe Rutgers doesn't come over to Columbus. And then maybe Ohio State doesn't head over to Maryland. Then you're off for 2 straight weeks there too. Ohio State has to right from the beginning, and kind of like what we see with Clemson. But again, look who Clemson's played though. But
right.
They are looking good from the get-go because you never know. So I think it's really important for Ohio State when they are on the field, they look as crisp as they can. And Lord, looking at a lot of these teams these past couple of weeks, man, that rust has been building up for a long time for some of these teams.
Yeah, Big 12 in particular has looked pretty terrible. Oklahoma State almost lost this past weekend.
Oh, Desmond, how is your Oklahoma State pick doing?
And there's been multiple Big 12 teams already lost.
Mm-hmm.
And against like Sun Belt teams who are fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to crap on the Sun Belt, but we are talking like a good Sun Belt team isn't any better than a good MAC team. So
yeah.
And when we've seen really good MAC teams, because they have these moments like Western Michigan had a moment there for a while, and they would knock off, Illinois or Iowa or someone early in the season. Mm-hmm. This is basically that. This is, and it's, as Kyle was talking about, a lot of the times, because because, how do I want to say this? What you have are potentially less games to prove yourself. You have less games to prove yourself. So that one loss against, Iowa State lost. You lose to Iowa State. That's your one out of conference game, probably, in the Big 12. That's it. That's your one out of conference game. So if Oklahoma played a real clunker of a team, like not even Sun Belt quality team, and they go out and they slaughter them, and that's fine. But what if there's no quality out of conference win for your entire conference, and then you all just start playing each other? And of course you have that just naturally built into the Big Ten. The Big Ten's only playing the Big Ten this year. It's going to be insanely difficult for the playoff committee to determine who is a good team and who isn't a good team based off of competition, because the conferences are being so insular. The playoff committee has it rough this year. And as far as the playoff committee goes, I want to say this. I think we're all of this mindset right now that the playoff committee is absolutely doing the playoff committee thing on December 20th. I want
to put money down.
No. If there are enough cancellations or postponements, or use whatever word you'd like to use here, not just from one conference, but across college football, it's totally reasonable that we push it back. It's really easy for the Big Ten to reschedule something at Lucas Oil Stadium. That's not that big of a deal. Even if your ninth week, which is supposed to be your championship weekend, even if that just the championship weekend, because right now, and I don't think we've mentioned this. Did we mention? Yeah, we talked about this on the last episode. That December 19th, 20th weekend is the championship weekend, but it's not just the championship weekend. They're doing a whole East versus West thing. One will play 1, 2 will play 2, 3 will play 3, so on and so forth, all the way down. And if you end up having to reschedule the Big Ten championship game, I don't know, especially if it gets pushed into January at some point, there aren't enough domes available domes, that is, to just start playing 9, 8, nope, 1, 7, the number is 7, to play 7 Big Ten games on the same weekend at some random weekend in January, especially if you're scheduling it with the thought process in the back of your head that you might end up having to reschedule it again.
Yep.
Point is that this is all to be determined. This could turn into a complete shit show for all we know, and there is no national title this year. Nothing that we took our last episode and did a victory lap because the Big Ten's playing. All right, great. The Big Ten's playing. All we're really guaranteed at this point is the start of a season. And if this season doesn't finish, then let's hope it's based off of reasonable and transparent decision making, and let's hope that the conferences, I was going to say Power 5, but we really don't know what the Pac-12 is doing, but that the Power 4 conferences playing are communicating and working together and trying to get on the same page if we end up having to push stuff back once again. Or outright cancel, or whatever the situation might be. But all I really want is for the conferences to work together and for there to be some level of communication and transparency in that decision-making process. Because like I said, we are only guaranteed the start of this season, not the end of it.
And maybe not even the start, too. I mean,
well, I'm not trying to be that pessimistic, Kyle.
All right, let's look at the rest of the schedule here for the other teams.
Sure.
looking at that here, who has probably the toughest schedule?
Before we get started on the toughest schedule thing, want to say, yes, Ohio State has a relatively easy schedule. I want to acknowledge that, but I'd also like to acknowledge that.
but
I would also like to acknowledge that Ohio State is never going to have the toughest schedule in the Big Ten because Ohio State doesn't play Ohio State.
Yep.
They get to avoid playing Ohio State every single year. And if you want to decide who has the toughest schedules, well, then you have to look at Ohio State's schedule. Because if you're not playing Ohio State, count yourself lucky. It's just that simple.
Well, then let's look at here. Who plays either, and if people are listening, you already know this answer, who plays from the west side, the big Northwest, who plays Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, 2 of the 3 there. And if you're listening at home,
2 of the 3.
Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State.
But there's only 2 cross-division games.
Correct. If they have
None of those?
Any of those 2 of those.
Any of
they have 2 of those 3 there. And if you're listening earlier, you already know the answer to that, and that is Nebraska.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other team from what I'm seeing here that does not play Michigan and Ohio State, or Michigan, Penn State, or Ohio State, Penn State, other than Nebraska.
Yeah, looking through it real quick, Illinois plays cross-divisionally. Illinois plays Ohio State and Rutgers, so they just got the bookends.
They did, yeah.
Iowa plays Michigan State, who's on the bottom half, and Penn State, who's probably number 2. Minnesota plays Michigan, but they also play Maryland. So that's medium good and medium bad. Let's see. Nebraska we already talked about. Northwestern plays Maryland and Michigan State. So that's a good draw. That's a real good draw for Northwestern. Purdue plays Rutgers and Indiana, which is also a good draw. I don't know what's well, before we do that, then Wisconsin plays Indiana and Michigan. So Northwestern, Purdue, I think, are the 2 teams who you look at who avoided having to play who we will call like the big 3 of the East.
Mm-hmm.
So who would you rather play? Maryland and Michigan State, or Rutgers and Indiana?
Rutgers and Indiana. If it's just based on...
I disagree.
Just playing them and winning.
Yeah, that's what else would we be talking about?
Strength of schedule.
I think this is all the same thing, but I'm very confused, Kyle. I think that's all the same thing, but I think Michigan State is going to be very, very, very bad this year. I would not be surprised to see them be as bad as Rutgers.
I wouldn't go that far yet.
Ah, man, Kyle, I don't know.
Rutgers is bad. Like, this...
Michigan State's bad. They have a whole new coaching staff. They've not recruited well for several cycles in a row. You have an entirely new coaching staff during the pandemic. And I get it, Rutgers has a brand new staff as well. But Rutgers is Rutgers. Like, that's a given. All right. Let's see. So, but Northwestern, Purdue definitely have the easiest draw. Does that automatically make Northwestern and Purdue the favorites in the West? Because as far as the actual teams go, I prefer Minnesota, Wisconsin. I think those are better football teams. But if we're looking at the schedule pool, Northwestern and Purdue have a foot up.
Probably. So kind of looking at that a little bit further, Northwestern plays home to Wisconsin and Nebraska, but they play at Minnesota. Purdue at Minnesota, at Minnesota and Wisconsin, home to Nebraska.
Now,
maybe Northwestern. Maybe Northwestern.
We have to remember with Purdue, Rondell Moore has opted out, and I've not heard anything about him attempting to opt back in.
Not yet.
Well, you have to remember whether we're talking about Micah Parsons at Penn State or Rondell Moore at Purdue. They opted out a long time ago. It's one thing to be, by the way, and if we mentioned we talked about Wyatt Davis on the last episode opting back in, and Shaun Wade's also now opted back in.
Yes. Yep.
That was not official the last time we talked, but I'm sure everyone has heard it by now, and you don't need to hear it from us.
But also look at Minnesota's wide receiver, Richard, too.
Yes.
He's still kind of up in the air, too, last I heard.
I thought I heard he was attempting to...
he's attempting to try to get back in, but...
Yes. It's more complicated for the guys who've been away for a long time. If you're Wyatt Davis or if you're Shaun Wade, it's a lot easier to opt out, be opted out for a week, and then opt back in. You really don't have time to take benefits and make yourself ineligible.
Yeah.
But if you're Micah Parsons and you've been opted out for an entire month or more, and now, someone's like, hey, come do an autograph session and we'll pay you per autograph. Be like, hell yeah, I'm going to go do that. Or something as simple as you sign with an agent and then the agent provides you benefits that's not even necessarily hard cash, but like access to a training facility with trainers. And point is that they've had a lot more time to basically say, there's not a season, and start training and, receiving free training. And again, just committing what are now considered violations now that there's a season again, and things that are violations if you're attempting to get back in. So it's very, like I said, they're not necessarily not knowing what they have or haven't done. Their road to opt back in is not nearly as simple, as Wade's or Wyatt's.
Yeah, so we'll see here, but he definitely wants to come back in. I've seen on here that he actually practiced on Friday with the team, but and he's re-enrolled back into the school. So I don't know. Yeah, there's just a lot still up in the air about that and what money he has taken, and if he has, NCAA will give any kind of break because of everything going on too.
And I've seen Tom Mars, who is a man who was potentially about to sue the Big Ten, but didn't. He is the guy who got Justin Fields immediately eligible to play for Ohio State. He's the same guy who got Tate Martell, who we may or may not talk about later, immediately eligible. He's a guy who knows his way around suing the NCAA, or at least communicating and figuring. I've seen him tweeting about trying to get some of these players eligible again, and how that, I don't know. Point is that we're all in like very uncharted territory right now, and as far as any of those players go, we'll see. That's it. We'll see. So who do you like in the West, Kyle? Just to win it all, to meet Ohio State and Indianapolis.
I think I'd still go with Wisconsin.
Yeah. Minnesota, I think, is interesting.
Yeah, I'm between Wisconsin and Minnesota right now.
I really like. I think Nebraska has taken some step forwards, and I really like them. That schedule is just prohibitive.
Yeah, they're cross schedules. I mean, 3 of their first 4 games: Ohio State, Wisconsin, Northwestern, then Penn State.
That's all 4 of those games, Kyle, are nasty.
Whew.
I mean, Northwestern maybe not as much as the others, but I think Northwestern has a real decent chance of making the championship game, and I say that probably more having to do with their schedule than the teams themselves, because as far as like actual talent level goes, Northwestern's probably my 4th favorite team in the BigTen West. But the schedule just lined up so nice for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kyle, who do you like in the East?
Who do I like in the East? Well, before I tell you in the East, let me tell you about some seasonings that I like.
Okay,
from
fair
the
enough.
Mad Canadian himself. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. You've been hearing us talk about him for almost a year now. We're almost a year with partnership with the Mad Canadian. I've had a number of his seasonings, and I tell you what, it's a lot better than what you would find as your generic seasonings you would find at Meijer, at Target, wherever you do your grocery shopping at, though. Mad Canadian is the real deal here.
Yeah,
great
no artificial
seasonings.
nonsense in these.
Yeah, none. There's just great seasonings. Anything that you want to cook, Mad Canadian's going to have it for you here. Let me go under his pork selections here. I kind of like to go under. He on his website, he has products for your chicken, your beef, your pork, ribs, vegetables, but a lot of times you can kind of you can go ahead and use one for another type.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of them are reversible, yeah.
You'll find a bunch of the spices under different sections because they're versatile.
The pork section, he has here the savory. Savory is just a great salty savory mix. It's great on just a number of things. He has on here pulled pork. Yeah. What have you used it for, Jared?
Shredded chicken and shredded pork is what I've personally used it on.
All right, shredded and pulled meats.
There you go.
The Brits blend. I think we mentioned this a number of times. I think Jared mentioned it heavily last time. It's like
heavily enough that it has left my desk.
Okay,
it's made it back.
Probably using it.
It's been moved back to the kitchen.
All right, the coffee and cube. Jared's mentioned that one of his favorites. It just has that little bit of caffeine in it. The Sonoran Heat, one of my all-time favorites too. It gives that little bit of extra kick in it too. Or the Two Border. Two Border, has that maple sugar taste with a little bit of kick in it. Has some red pepper flakes in it. Great.
He sells in the truck ribs by the bone. Mm-hmm. And it's slathered in the Two Border. So if you want to give that a try and you're anywhere near Cary, Ohio on Friday, there you go.
Yes, absolutely. Check out all of those seasonings and many more at themadcanadianbbq.com. That is themadcanadianbbq.com. Sloopcast10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where he has your butt. And pork, and chicken,
and pork butt,
covered.
Okay.
All right, Jared. Who is the favorite in the East? Let me think hard about that.
Well, let's look at the schedules, Kyle. I was kidding. I'm not. Just say it. Pull the Band-Aid.
Right here, Ohio State. It is Ohio State. Favorable schedule. A lot of the teams that they play, I'm mainly looking at their cross-divisional and their rival home games. Their only really tough game on the schedule here is Penn State. if they get through Penn State, they're 2-0. There's a very good chance here that Ohio State will just sweep through this, and really they should. They really should with the team and talent that they have.
I mean, with the caveat of Justin Fields. I really don't know what this team looks like without him, should something happen to him. And let's face facts. If something should happen to him, a COVID test knocks you out for 3 weeks, essentially.
Yeah.
So you lose Justin Fields, especially if you lose Justin Fields for the first 3 games or the last 2 games. And when I say last 2 games, I'm not talking about Michigan State. I'm talking about the championship weekend. Who knows what happens? Ohio State is just not deep in right now talent at the quarterback position. They have a pair of incredibly talented freshmen who just haven't had the time yet. Beep, beep. They just haven't had the time yet. And so no offense to their futures, but their present is not great. So there's always that. But if Ohio State stays relatively healthy, and that's tough to do because of COVID, because of no bye weeks, then yeah, they should win the East. Penn State's a good team this year, but there's nothing about them that scares me anymore, maybe even slightly less than past Penn State teams. But they're still a great team with great talent, and they'll still challenge Ohio State. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's really nice to be able to play Penn State at Penn State when no one's allowed in the stadium. So that's a huge benefit. No one likes playing in the whiteout.
What about Ohio State's Week 8 opponent?
That team up north. It is what it is. They've had an exceptionally tough opt-out process. They've lost quarterbacks, multiple. They lost their best offensive lineman. They've lost I believe a wide receiver, if memory serves. And then the university as a whole is a mess. The faculty just vote. We were talking a bit about this on the last episode. That no confidence vote went through against the president of the university, which is the first time that has happened in the 100-plus year history of the university.
Yeah. Well, the good thing for Michigan, though, from what I saw here, one of their best linemen is opting back in, Jalen Mayfield.
Oh, okay.
So that'll help them out, but it's still up in the year.
Is he? He's been out for a while.
This says here that Jalen Mayfield to return to Michigan for the 2020 season.
Okay. It takes an incredible amount of discipline, because he's much like the other players, been opted out for a while. So hopefully he kept his eligibility clean in a, hey, just in case sort of way.
Yeah. I think the biggest one is Nico Collins. Still nothing yet from him. Embry Thomas, still not sure what's going on. If just going to stay out or whatever the case may be. But as of right now, the only one that has said that they're going to opt out this year to reverse that is their lineman, Jalen Mayfield.
Okay. So that's good news for Michigan, because he's very talented.
But I did see, like, their quarterback, though. He looked like at the time, and again, we'll see how things go in the coming weeks go, but it looked like he was trying to transfer out.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. He's not opting back in.
Yeah. Now, Embry Thomas is their, I forget what year. He might be a senior, but he's like one of their main, essentially, Embry Thomas is Sean Wade for
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with Ambry Thomas out, that's going to really hurt Michigan's secondary too.
And the last thing you want to do if you have any sort of hope for defeating Ohio State this year is to have a depleted secondary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for you. You can't hope to win against Ohio State with a depleted secondary.
Yep.
Ohio State's too deep at wide receiver and too talented at quarterback. Again, presuming health, which is just always a thing we presume, but have to maybe double presume it this year.
Yeah. So, who do you think might be a big surprise for this year for the East, the big Northeast? I know you're not going to say Michigan State or Rutgers.
No.
So, do you think a surprise from Maryland, from Indiana, or that Michigan will actually be a lot better than what we give credit to?
No, this is not going to be a good year for Michigan. I think it's interesting to watch, especially with Harbaugh in a contract year right now. Michigan's going to be very interesting to watch. I don't like where they are right now as a university and the way the university is handling COVID. I don't like where the football team is at. I don't like where their quarterbacks are at. I don't like anything about Michigan right now. I just don't like anything about Michigan right now. I don't expect Michigan to take some sort of big step forward.
Yep.
Penn State, they lost their best defender to an opt-out in Micah Parsons, so that's tough.
Yeah, nothing about, not even a whisper, not even anything about him returning.
Franklin talked a bit about it on the Fox pregame show, but really only said that, quote, there's been communication. That's it.
Okay.
If we're looking for someone to take a step forward in the East this year, I would just be interested to see what happens with Maryland at the quarterback position. That's just, I hate to acknowledge it as a person who loves defense and who loves offensive line play. But the fact of the matter is college football is so dependent upon how good your quarterback is. And if Maryland shows up better than expected behind the center this year, I think they could be pretty decent. When I say pretty decent, I mean, challenge for third place in the BigTen East. That's what I say. When I say pretty decent, I'm talking about Michigan State is down, period. They're a mess. Mm-hmm. So fourth place is open for the taking because Indiana is just an ebb and flow sort of team. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not. And I think they've been the further away they get from Kevin Wilson and his tenure at now at Ohio State from Indiana, the less impressive Indiana looks. So I think Maryland can absolutely take over the fourth spot in the Big Ten East this year. And if Michigan is as big a dumpster fire as even if they probably have to be a little bit more of a dumpster fire than I'm even anticipate them being, it's not going to be great for Michigan, I think, regardless. But I think that opens a door potentially for Maryland if their quarterback play, if say Tua ends up being really good. And that's if he even wins the spot. And if maybe his presence there helps push the guy who does end up winning this. It all depends upon the quarterback play, which I think is another thing that makes Penn State a little bit intriguing right now.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing from you, Jared, is that we're expecting 9 in a row
for Ohio State.
Yes.
Yeah. If Ohio State stays healthy. Wait, do you mean 9 in a row? Are you talking about the season? 9-win season? Or are you talking about the 9th? What do you mean 9? Are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Because that applies twice. But yes to both of them.
All right. All right, cool. Anything else about the the schedule here. Hopefully, this schedule is set now.
Michigan got a really tough draw if you look at the cross divisions.
Wisconsin and
Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think they have the toughest from the big Northeast.
Yeah, they got on the eastern side of the conference. They got the toughest draw. Yeah, Michigan's got it tough this year. Just look at the schedule real quick. Obviously they're going to play Michigan State, Rutgers, and Maryland because they're in the East. But they have Wisconsin, Indiana, Minnesota, Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Ohio State on the schedule.
Mm-hmm. And they end it really strong. Like the opponents they play right at the end, home to Penn State, home to Maryland, and then at Ohio State.
All right. Let's see. Let's get a couple Ask Sloopcast questions in, then let's finish the show.
Sure. We have Duncan from the Discord. Duncan asks, now that football's back, any word on the running back room?
Yeah. I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens. They haven't been practicing in pads. There's not been any media availability for, say, like Tony and Tom to go and watch the team practice. So we're not getting a ton of information out. And again, everyone's focus, the reporters and the school and the athletic department, everyone's focus has just been trying to get this new season going. So the coaches and the players have still been working, but the media and everyone hasn't necessarily been focusing on it. So it's really, we've not had a ton of information get out. And I'm hearing good things about Trey Sermon.
Yep.
I'm still of the, I don't know, it'll be, I think he'll either be one of the guys in the rotation and contribute in a good way, or he's going to be great. I think are the two separate things I'm hearing. I'm leaning more towards he'll be one of the guys in the rotation participating in a meaningful way rather than he's going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm leaning right now. I could be wrong. I'm still looking forward to see what like Teague can do and Crawley can do. That's where I'm at right now. What Chambers can do. The two things I'm hearing that are in conflict a lot is how great the running backs are, how deep the running back room is, how much they talked all last year about how much they really like the young guys on the team. But then they went and they got Sermon in the transfer portal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it
those two things seem to be in contradiction.
Yeah. And well, I think they went out and got Trey because of the health with Master Teague.
That's true.
So, Master Teague, from what we've been hearing, seems to be at near, ready to go.
Yeah.
He's obviously we can't tell without practices and all that. But on the Buckeye Scoop forum here, we've had at least one person from the Buckeye Scoop saying that they believe, in their opinion, that Trey is going to lead the teams in carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, there are a couple of our insiders over at the Scoop who are incredibly high on Sermon.
Yeah.
I don't share that same level of confidence right now. But that's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and a lot of it too. Look at what Master Teague did last year. Granted, some of it was in mop-up duty.
Almost all of it was in mop-up. Here,
and a lot of people really focused on the Clemson game when he just didn't do anything, which is fair.
Yeah,
fair to an extent. But we saw what Master Teague can do, though.
It was the first time Ohio State relied on Master Teague to create. to do something other than to kill the clock. It was the first time Ohio State turned to Master Teague and said, okay, we need you. And he didn't perform. Now, that's against one of the best defenses in the country also. So it's both fair and not. Mm-hmm. It was at a point where J.K. Dobbins with was a sprained ankle, wasn't it? And who was at best 80% health, and I think 80% health is being generous.
Very, very.
That they had to put J.K. Dobbins back in because J.K. Dobbins at 3/4 speed was better than Master Teague, which is not what you want.
Yep.
So we'll see on Master Teague. We just have to say we'll see. Mm-hmm. He's had an entire offseason since then. Spent a lot of it hurt.
Yeah, I think we'll get a good dose of both of them.
I think so too. And again, you still have Chambers and Crawley and other guys on the team.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Sun Card asks us in the Discord. Again, you can join us in the Discord by being a fellow Patreon. At least a minimum $3 a month gets you into the Discord, get early access to our episodes, and get to talk a lot of just chat with Jared and I and the rest of the fellow Patreons.
Yep.
Suncard asks us, who is your prime candidate for a breakout year this year or this season?
I think this is pick your young receiver on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the young wide receivers I think are going to break through. Is it Ninjimba? I think that's where I'm leaning right now.
Ninjimba? Is it Fleming?
It could be Fleming. It could be Scott.
It could be Scott. Could it be Stover?
No. The tight ends are too deep right now. He's like the fourth tight end on the depth chart. Now they moved Stover over to tight end because you have two seniors and a junior who could potentially leave if he has a really good season. That's why you move Stover over to tight end.
Yep. Because
Ohio State is incredibly deep at tight end this year, but could be decimated next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm having a hard time trying to find somebody outside of a wide receiver here. Scott, Fleming, and Jimba. Pick one of them. Pick one of those.
Yeah, I think that's where you have to. Well, and the thing is that as good as we expect, like some of the younger guys along the offensive line guys almost never like. When you use the term breakout, it's just not a term we use for the offensive line.
I think if it's going to be an offensive line, it's going to be one who would come in from an injury and they just kill it. But
I think there are really good young offensive linemen coming into the lineup this year. It's just not. It's not how we talk about offensive linemen. No. Breakout. To me, when we use the term breakout, we're talking about a guy who the casuals don't know now, who will know by the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or even, we've seen a little bit of him last year. If you with someone that people may know, but will have a great year this year, maybe Harrison on the defensive end.
See, I wasn't getting to the defensive end or the defensive side yet, but yeah, Zach Harrison, I think, is the obvious name on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically going to, not by himself, he'll have Cooper, among others, also in the rotation. But I think Harrison's the guy who they are, and good luck on this, expecting to pick up the slack of losing Chase Young. Now, he's not going to do that. Not this year. Maybe we'll talk about next year. But, Chase Young wasn't Chase Young his sophomore year. Chase Young needed to be a lesser version of himself as a sophomore to grow into what he became as a junior. And Zachary Harrison gets that same leeway.
Well, to be fair too, Chase Young, his sophomore year, he was playing hurt as well.
He was, absolutely. But and I think that even if Chase Young hadn't got hurt, he still wasn't as a sophomore what he was as a junior.
Yeah. He was
even
monster.
Yes. He was practically unblockable last year. So when we're talking about Zachary Harrison, I think that it is fair to put him to where Chase Young was as a sophomore, but not to where Chase Young was last year as a junior as a point of comparison.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question from Stewart_E4, US Vet. So maybe you should have some of our new buddies at Husker Nation do some #AskSloopcast. This could make your footprint larger.
Well, we should definitely do that the week of the Ohio State Husker game.
Yes.
The Ohio State Nebraska game. But we don't want to let them in too far now, do we, Stuart? Kyle, I actually have one more for you.
All right.
This one actually also comes from Stewart_US Vet, but via DM. So you didn't have access to this one. With Ohio State and Nebraska both sticking it to the Big Ten, would you consider them Eskimo brothers? Also, will there be a show, he says, if solidarity, I think he means of solidarity between the two, or will Ohio State try to embarrass them since the 8 to 9 games have to be one-sided in the name of the eye test? Kyle, do you know what the term Eskimo brother means?
No.
Okay, do not, and this goes for you and anyone listening, do not Google that.
Okay.
That's just don't do it. And I know the more I say don't do it, the more tempted some of you will don't do that. It's of course now I've made it sound worse than but don't do it. Don't do it. It's fine.
But don't do it.
Second part of the question. Will Ohio State take it easy on Nebraska? Maybe pull the starters a bit sooner in a show of solidarity, or are they going to get the same treatment as Rutgers?
Not the same treatment. I've already kind of explained earlier in this episode that Ohio State, just like everybody else, needs to show an eye test because of the unknown in future weeks.
All right, but let me counterpoint that. I'm not saying you're wrong, but we're doing a show here after all. So let me counterpoint that. What if I point out that Ohio State, along with the entire Big Ten, doesn't have any bye weeks? There's no bye weeks here. So you got no bye weeks. You go into the December 20th weekend having to play another game. And then when are the playoff games this year? Are the playoff games going to be on January 1st? That's a big stretch with relatively no rest.
Okay, so let me rephrase that. So
will Ohio State, so to even maybe move past this Stewart's question, will Ohio State, what's more important, getting your players some rest when there are no bye weeks and maybe pulling your players a little soon, or keeping them in a little late in a blowout in order to really drive home the style points?
No, I think giving them the rest that they need is definitely important, but I think that the coaching staff shouldn't go all Tressel-like once all the backup players come in then. So don't just go like, oh, we're going full on spread, 4 wide or 3 wide with a tight end. And then all of a sudden the backups come in, and then all of a sudden we're doing 2 tight end sets then all of a sudden.
Well, you also have to ask yourself how much, who do you have in at quarterback, and how much do you trust them to actually run that offense? because you can erase a nice lead really quickly with a pick six or a couple turnovers. So you can't necessarily turn to your freshman quarterback or, no offense to Gunnar Hoke, but to Gunnar Hoke and say, okay, go run Justin Fields offense when they aren't capable of it either from an experience standpoint or from a physical standpoint.
Well, and here's the question too. Does it have to be the offense Justin Fields runs too? Because
you're not going to have time this year to install a second offense for Gunnar Hoke.
I mean, that is true, but the coaches have to be prepared for in case if Fields gets hurt, if he has to sit out for 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. If the coaching staff needs to be prepared for that type of scenario.
If it's a 3-week outage, it's not Gunnar Hoke. You need to pick one of your freshmen and go. I don't want to be mean to Gunnar Hoke, but he couldn't start at Kentucky. That's the reality. Okay, I'm not trying. He's an Ohio kid. I like him. I can tell he seems like a nice guy. Nice kid, nice family. One of the best dudes I've ever been around. I go full Urban Meyer on this. But you didn't start at Kentucky. We all know you're Chug this year. We lost Chug. We brought in a new Chug. This Chug's name is Gunnar Hoke. No offense, but I don't want him leading Ohio State for 3 weeks. You have to turn to one of your freshmen for a 3-week absence. Hoke comes in if you need a guy to hand the ball off for the fourth quarter. Hoke comes in if you lose, if Justin Fields needed to come off, maybe get his ankle looked at real quick, and then decide if he has to go back in the game or not. That's when Gunnar Hoke comes in. If you're going to lose Justin Fields for 3 weeks, you need to pick one of the freshmen and go.
Yep. Understand. It's
a tough choice.
It is.
But
it really
in my
is.
opinion, you have to err not towards style points. I don't think style point. If you're Ohio State and you go 9-0, which I think you're fully capable of doing, you go 9-0. Even if it's 8-0, let's say Rutgers or Maryland ends up getting canceled for one reason or another, and that game simply doesn't happen. Okay, so what? You're now 8-0 and the Big Ten champion. You're making the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
You're a team that everyone decided before the season even started was one of the 2 best teams in the country. Just don't lose. Just don't lose and you'll be in the playoff. I'm not worried about style points. Okay. Oh, Ohio State only won 8 games this year. Only won 9 games this year. I don't care. I do not care. Am I really supposed to care that much that they didn't have an opportunity to bash Bowling Green into the ground and score 70-0 and have the starters out with 10 minutes left in the third quarter? Mm-hmm. Is that supposed to be the big deal breaker?
So essentially this year it's going to be kind of the opposite of the past few years. It's not so much, who have you beaten? But this year it's more of, how many losses have you had?
That's always been the case, Kyle. Who have you beaten is the philosophy you and I go by. Not losing is the philosophy that actually puts you in the playoff.
Mm. Yeah. All right. I think that is all of the notes we have here for today.
All right. Awesome. Want to encourage everyone, check out the master link. It's right there in the show notes. It's right there in the description of the YouTube thing, wherever you're looking or watching at this. Watching at this? I said watching at this. I'm so good at my job. In there you can find our 2 separate merch stores over at TeePublic. One of them is Sloopcast specific. The other one is not. It's just some cool, like, Ohio-based stuff. I have a whole series. I'm going to lean up a little bit here. This is the Youngstown Mafia. I made up a bunch of fake pro sports franchises for a bunch of the markets in Columbus. This is just one of them. This is the Youngstown Mafia. This is in our 7071 store, so you can go into the master link, find that 7071 store, and you just find a bunch of Ohio-based apparel in there. None of it actually says Sloopcast or anything on it, but if you want stuff that says Sloopcast on it, you can check out the Sloopcast store. Isn't that great how that works? You can find the Mad Canadian link inside that master link. You can find our Patreon page in that master link where you can sort of help keep this thing running. Our lowest tier is $3 a month. Our highest tier is $15 a month. And I take that back. Our highest tier is our partner tier, which is how you advertise with the Sloopcast. So if anyone's out there listening and you want to advertise with the Sloopcast, you can go to our Patreon page, or you can email us sloopcast@gmail.com, so we can have maybe a conversation first before you just sort of jump into advertising all of a sudden. And that's all the talking I feel like doing. Kyle, do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
The Columbus Crew.
Yes.
Columbus Crew keeps on winning. Crew on their first ever meetup with Nashville SC. We come out with a win in Columbus, 2-0. I didn't catch the whole game but from the little bit I was able to see, though, Nashville really held on to the ball a lot, and a lot of passing going around. Really limited Columbus from being able to do a lot with the ball, but from the limited opportunities that Columbus did, they made them count. 2-0 for the Crew. I believe, if I look at the standings, they are well ahead of the second place. Yep. So the Crew, 8 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. They have 27 points right now, and then second place, Orlando City and Toronto with 22. So have a comfortable lead in their conference right now.
Awesome. Anything else in Kyle's corner? It's okay to say no. Quit.
No.
You're doing dead air. Quit doing.
No, I don't.
Okay. You can't. I'm trying to edit these as little as possible, Kyle. You can't do the dead air. As Kyle just stares into the camera. You bastard. Let's see. We're doing Sloop Picks starting on Friday, so we're looking forward to doing that. And just make sure to check out the Friday episode. We're getting back into the swing of things, and we're looking forward to it. Kyle, should we do maybe you want to do like an SEC preview, ACC preview, something along those lines?
We'll do something.
Something.
We'll do something.
We're gonna do something. We're gonna do something maybe a little bit more.
We got a month to prepare. We got a month until the Ohio State games, so yeah, we'll try to do.
Maybe we'll just do like one. Maybe we'll do more of a high level preview for the entire non-Big Ten world. Yep. We'll do something. We're gonna do something fun, and then we're gonna do our first round of Sloop Picks. So that'll be Friday episode. Sounds good. Ending today's episode will be the Ohio Weather Band. I'll play a song of theirs at the end of today's episode. You can check the song title and find some links down in the doobly-doo. And with all of that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, this is the Ohio Weather Band. What's up, YouTube?
I am muting myself because there's like an ice cream truck playing some weird song.
Is it the one that goes do 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 do
Nope.
do do? No,
It's almost like
because that's like probably
Caribbean.
the one
It's
song.
Caribbean. It's like Caribbean.
That's the opposite thing I want an ice cream truck to do.
So if I look,
No, stay away. Because like the do do to do to do song is like the one song that
Definitely-
doesn't get us a
definitely a-
copyright strike on YouTube. We're trying not to get a copyright strike.
definitely a ice cream truck.
What's that? What'd you say?
What's that?
You said something about the ice cream truck.
I said it's definitely an ice cream truck.
No, I believe you. I'm not questioning your ability to determine if it's an ice cream truck or not. I'm questioning the choice of the driver of the ice cream truck.
Yeah.
All right, let's rejoin our audio listeners. Guys, if you watch on YouTube, you get these A+ conversations in which Kyle says he's going to mute and then doesn't because of rogue ice cream trucks.
Weird.
All right, rejoining the podcast audience. Would like to once again thank the Ohio Weather Band for ending today's episode and thank the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company for sponsoring today's episode. Let's take a look here. What do I got? The Sonoran Heat. This is one of the wonderful do-it-all spices brought to you by the Mad Canadian Focus Camera. There we go. The Sonoran Heat. This in the S&P Bud. If you're looking to sort of maybe finally, because you've heard us talk about it for a year, and maybe finally jump in, buy some Mad Canadian spices. He has some really good stuff that is like signature, like that you maybe can't get anywhere else, or maybe there may be a little bit more like specific, like the Coffee and Q, which is chili, maple, paprika, but then has the coffee in it. You can't find stuff like this anywhere else. Or the Old Fashioned, which is a bourbon cherry mix. You can't just find that anywhere else. So you go there and you get some of the maybe quote unquote weird stuff or unique stuff. Unique's a better word. But while you're there, you're also going to want to pick up some really nice do-it-all spices because, you know, the Coffee and Q is really good for certain situations. But then you also just need stuff that becomes like a staple of your kitchen. And the two that I really want to recommend that become absolute kitchen staples are the Sonoran Heat, which I think I already did this with the Sonoran Heat, and then the S&P Bud. The S&P Bud is salt, it's pepper, it's more than that. It's not just salt and pepper, it's a lot more than that. And it's a great do-it-all. I just want to throw something in these mashed potatoes real quick to make them not boring. Throw some S&P Bud in there. Maybe you're making some hash browns. Boom. S&P Bud on those hash browns. You can really do anything you want with that or the Sonoran Heat. The Sonoran Heat, don't let the name fool you. It's not that hot. It's a little bit hot. There's, I believe, maybe some, let's see, there's some black pepper, there's paprika. It's a little bit spicy. Now, but if you're looking for something real spicy, then you're going to want to, and again, maybe we're moving away from like your do-it-all spices into something a little bit more specialty. So we're trying to get like something that's great for hot wings or whatever you're trying to make that's going to, you know, give you a really nice kick. Now we're talking about moving into either the Four Horsemen or the Discord, which are both 4 pepper blends. The Discord has a little bit of a sweeter base, while the Four Horsemen has a saltier base, but they're both really spicy 4 pepper blends, and those two are 2 of my absolute favorites. He also has the Ope, which is a smoked ranch, which isn't one I talk about a lot because it has a little too much dill in it for me. So it's not one that I personally like, but that's only because I have a dill aversion, and that has nothing to do with anyone else. That's just me. But maybe you love dill, in which case check out the smoked ranch. You can find that spices and all of these other spices that have scattered across my desk over at themadcanadianbbq.com. You can use promo code SloopCast10. That's SloopCast10 at checkout. Once again, madcanadianbbq.com, promo code SloopCast10. The Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. He's got your butt covered.